Good day everyone, Complaining Gamer here. If you've been keeping up to date with Cemu news, you should know that we currently have two simultaneous builds that we're playing with. The stable 1.13.0, which is out now, and the experimental work in progress 1.14.0, with the texture cache rework currently just for Patreon supporters. Cemu 1.13.0 introduces a feature which got my imagination flowing about potential future changes to the emulator. Before I share my thoughts on them, let's hopefully clear up the Vulkan discussion once and for all, as there still seems to be some confusion. A fully complete Cemu 1.14.0, which is roughly set for public release a month from now in September, lays the first building block for Vulkan implementation. The first step of many before Vulkan is fully integrated into Cemu, which is believed to arrive sometime in 2019. So, to be clear, for hopefully the final time, the rough estimate for Vulkan is 2019. Cemu 1.13.0 and 1.14.0 introduces the ability to change shader-based graphic packs in real time in-game. A huge leap for the emulator, as any graphic pack changes previously required a full emulator restart. To take advantage of this feature, however, requires the graphic pack team to rebuild them to meet the new standard. Old packs still work in 1.13.0, but can't take advantage of this specific feature unless updated, and the main focus for the team right now is 1.14.0. The new option found in the graphic pack menu allows for grouped presets of shader based effects. That means anything related to lighting, colours, anti-aliasing, shadows and more can be changed on the fly. The current limitation is that this new feature does not apply to changes in resolution, unfortunately. Those will still require an emulator restart. Naturally, packs will need to be active before loading your game to be able to use the new shader reload button. Now, the following ideas are just my own thoughts and not from the Cemu team, but explore them with me. With the new reload shader button in 1.13.0 and continued through 1.14.0, Cemu for the first time has a feature which can be identified as a very basic form of a graphical setting adjustable in-game. This led me to thinking about the possibilities of a fully developed GUI with graphic settings. It would undoubtedly be a lot of work to program the rules for each game title to work in the background under the hood and be provided to the end user with a simple button, but it is something I'd like to see eventually, eliminating clunky graphic packs and streamlining the experience. Cemu is a relatively young emulator, but technically fairly developed. Many would say that Breath of the Wild dominated the development cycle for too long, however it was in extremely high demand. Regardless of how you feel about whether other games were neglected or not, Cemu would definitely benefit from certain features in my opinion. As a layman, I look to other emulators to see what they have to offer, especially in terms of graphical settings, an area in which Cemu is lacking. You could argue that emulation accuracy is the priority, which it is, but I am drawn to make comparisons with RPCS3, Citra and Dolphin. When I approached lead Cemu developer XAP about additional graphical features, he stated that the Wii U is part of the 8th generation of gaming consoles and is closer to a modern PC than a GameCube or Wii. The idea being that making direct comparisons with emulators emulating older consoles isn't a fair one. He stated that the GameCube and Wii is fixed pipeline, whereas the Wii U is fully programmable shaders, which increases the complexity significantly. Due to the complexity, an easy to adjust upscaler is simply not in the near future roadmap, if ever, it seems, according to XAP. He provided quite a lengthy technical explanation regarding resolution option changes in version 1.14.0. Quote, "About the changes in 1.14.0, the technical aspect. The Wii U's GPU doesn't actually support specifying a precise resolution for rendered targets. It's always rounded to at least the next multiple of 8 for both width and height, with additional constraints where it sometimes can be rounded up even further. Games have to use the scissor box or viewport feature to make sure they stay within the resolution that they actually want to use. Until 1.13.0, we ignored all of that and just passed the render target resolution directly. It was a hack that worked surprisingly well. With 1.14.0, in an attempt to rewrite everything for accuracy, we now emulate it with the rounded resolution. However, this leads to scenarios where the render target is created with a different resolution than when it is read as a texture. For example, 1920 by 1080 can get rounded to 1920 by 1088 when rendering to it, but when it is bound as a texture, it will be used with the actual resolution of 1920 by 1080 since the resolution is a fixed part of OpenGL texture objects. We can't re-specify the width and height on the fly like the games on Wii U do. Instead, we create a new texture for every accessed resolution. Cemu then tries to keep the data in sync between the textures, usually using GL copy text sub image, which shows up in Nsight but not GPU Perf Studio. Imagine we had a game where we wanted to upscale a 1080p texture to 4K, 3840 by 2160. First, you figure out the render resolution of 1080. As I mentioned above, it's 1920 by 1088, which should also be easy to find with Nsight. You also know the texture will be accessed as 1920 by 1080 in 1.14.0. You have to create two texture rules. One rule to rescale 1920 by 1080 to 3840 by 2160, same as in 1.13.0 and earlier, and another rule to rescale 1920 by 1088 to 3840 by 2176. It's very important that the ratio remains intact. 1080, 1088 and 2160, 2176 have the same ratio. If most of that went straight over your head, join the club. But if you got it perfectly, congratulations. Let me know what you'd like to see introduced in Cemu in terms of features, compatibility and anything that comes to mind. Leave your ideas, thoughts and comments down below. Complaining Gamer social media links are also there. If you enjoyed the content, leave a like. If you didn't, dislike. And to stay up to date with all things emulation, subscribe and hit that bell icon. I'll catch you in the next one.